I bet since you are here that you already have some powerful and effective communication skills that are working for you. But what if I told you that I have a few unconventional techniques that will set you apart, make you memorable, and give you the confidence to raise your authority? In this video, I'll share a few slightly odd but interesting approaches I've come up with over the past 20 years as a speaking and communication skills coach. Let's go. When I was learning speaking skills, it was originally through programs like Toastmasters, which focused on speaking clearly and confidently and used structured exercises to craft effective and clear speeches. And then a few years ago, I did a beautiful transformative speaking program that culminated in my keynote about changing the narrative on aging. And the focus in that program, which was called Woman Speak, was a lovely feminine approach that encouraged embodiment and expressiveness, and that had a model for content that was more scalable. Then I felt, and I still do feel, that both are needed. In the past few years, I've done a deep dive into masculine, feminine polarity and embodiment. And that has begun to enrich my communication skills and speaking skills training in ways that are beautifully unique and I think quite innovative and also a lot of fun. I've begun to make the distinction with my speaking clients between masculine speaking and feminine speaking, recognizing that when you can use one or the other as appropriate and with consciousness, that both can have a powerful impact on how you effectively connect with the person you're speaking with and communicate your message. A masculine speaking style is very direct, pointed, clear, concise, and landed. In contrast, feminine speaking practice involves thinking out loud in more spiral forms with more emotion and embodiment and movement, sometimes with the content forward moving and sometimes retracting. It's a very creative way and a very explorative way of speaking. And it has so much beauty and embodiment and flow. Before I recognized the distinction between masculine speaking and feminine speaking, I called my way of speaking verbal processing. And it was not without judgment. I used to consider that I didn't really say anything, thought that I talked too much, and that maybe I had a tendency to go on and on. Once I recognized the beauty in it as an alternative way to speaking concisely, clearly, and to the point, I began to see the beauty and the power of speaking in the feminine. And so instead of calling it blah, 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 or verbal diarrhea, which is the way we denigrate the feminine, and named it as a powerful process called feminine speaking practice, I began to recognize the power it holds and started to teach it as one of the more unusual and useful and creative elements of teaching speaking skills. Now, it's valuable to create a container for speaking in the feminine. So if I'm going to process out loud with another person, sometimes I'll say, is it okay if I verbally process? Is it okay if I speak in the feminine for a minute or two so I can think this concept out loud? This gives the person I'm speaking with or the listener a framework to hold that space, and it makes the process clearer, conscious, and more effective. It allows the listener to trust that I'm aware of the fact that I am entering a feminine speaking process and that I'm aware of a container and a time frame for it. When I use this as an exercise in my speaking coaching, I'll suggest to my client, let's now move to a masculine speaking style where we can learn from the feminine practice and distill the ideas or the content, the exploration into clear, concise, and landed sentences. Again, both practices are powerful. Both practices work best when we are clear about which one we are using. The second unconventional speaking style is something that I call landing the period, because I like to use punctuation or if I'm working with musicians, musical notation as a metaphor for how we speak. So landing the period is crucial in any speaking practice, but it is especially powerful when speaking in the masculine energetic. Landing the period involves finishing a thought with clarity, signaling to the listener that the thought is complete. In contrast, when we're not aware of speaking in the feminine or speaking in the masculine, many people tend to continue and then trail off, ultimately leaving their listeners unsure if the thought is done, which reduces the speaker's authority and erodes their confidence. We'll be talking about this in more detail over time. The third unconventional speaking practice that I want to share with you, I call 1-minute stories. And 1-minute stories are something I often use on TikTok, and they involve taking any idea and breaking it down into 5 sections, which is similar to a 5-paragraph essay. The format is simple. Introduce a topic, share 3 key points, and then conclude with a call to action or some other form of connection with the audience. So, for example, if I were to talk about the importance of pause in speaking, I might say, as my first point, here are 3 benefits of using pause in your speaking. And then 3 points to follow up the context of the topic. Pause gives you time to connect with yourself, your message, and your audience. And then the second point, pause allows the listener to digest what you have just said. And 3, pause creates intrigue and curiosity about what you'll say next. And then for the conclusion, I might say, when was the last time you used pause? And how did it feel? Using this structure of 5 points, an introduction, 3 major points, and a conclusion or call to action allows you to take any topic area, organize your thoughts on the fly or in advance, remember what it is you're going to say, and present it in a way that your audience can parse it and probably remember it more effectively. Using the structure helps to create concise, impactful stories that are not only effective on social media, but also in developing longer talks. We've talked about using masculine and feminine energetics, landing the period for effect, and using 1-minute stories as a framework for developing ideas and sharing them effectively. Thanks for being here for today's segment of Speaking and Communication Skills. If you'd like to watch another video, YouTube thinks you'll like this one, and there's a playlist here. See you next time.